My name is Jack, and I live in a quiet little town in the USA. Like many others, I struggled with learning English when I was younger. It wasn't easy at first, but over time I found my own secret strategy that helped me learn. I want to share it with you today, in the form of a story, because stories make learning fun. And I hope that by the end of this story, you'll have a few new tips to help you improve your English too. One morning, I woke up and realized I needed to take my English seriously. I was tired of not understanding songs, movies, or even the news on TV. My first idea was simple. I'll read every day. That sounded easy, right? But here's the truth. It's not just about reading, it's about choosing the right things to read. I remember my friend Sarah telling me, Jack, don't start with difficult books. Pick something easy, something you like. So I picked a comic book. Yes, a comic book. You see, I was a big fan of superheroes, and reading about them made English fun. As I turned the pages, I noticed something important. The pictures helped me understand the words I didn't know. I learned new phrases without even trying too hard. And when I came across a word I didn't understand, I would stop and look it up. I kept a small notebook with me. Every time I learned a new word, I'd write it down. This helped me remember. Soon, I had pages and pages of words. But the secret was to use these words. I made sentences with them, sometimes silly ones, but that didn't matter. The important thing was I was practicing. One day, as I sat on my bed reading, my friend Ben called. Ben was great at English. He could speak so fast. I asked him, "How did you get so good?" He smiled and said, "Jack, I didn't just read or write. I talked a lot. I talked to everyone I could. Even if my English wasn't perfect, that's when I realized I needed to speak more." I started small. At the grocery store, I would ask, "Excuse me, where is the bread?" Simple sentences like this made me more confident. Every time I spoke, I felt a little better. My pronunciation wasn't perfect, but that was okay. The more I practiced, the better I got. And soon, I was speaking with more people. My favorite part of learning English was watching movies. There's something magical about seeing a story unfold and understanding it. But at first, I couldn't understand everything. I used subtitles, which helped a lot. Sometimes I'd pause the movie and repeat what the characters said. This made me feel like I was in the movie. One time, while watching a funny movie with my friend Emily, I tried to copy the way the characters spoke. We laughed so much that night. But even though it was fun, I was learning. I learned how people really talk in everyday life, not just in books. One trick I found very useful was singing. Yes, singing. I loved music, especially pop songs. I would listen to songs over and over again, trying to sing along. The first time I did this, it felt strange. But over time, my pronunciation improved. There's something about singing that makes words stick in your brain. My sister, Lily, would often laugh at me, saying, "Jack, you're always singing that same song," but what she didn't know was, I was secretly learning while having fun. Another day, I was in the park with my friend David. We were talking about the best ways to improve English. David told me, "Jack, writing is so important. It helps you remember words." I hadn't thought much about writing before. But after talking to David, I decided to give it a try. I started writing a little every day. Sometimes I'd write about my day, other times I'd make up stories. It didn't matter what I wrote, as long as I was writing. And guess what? It worked. My vocabulary grew, and I became more comfortable with grammar. One memory that stands out is when I met Anna. She was from a different country and was also learning English. We became friends, and she shared her own tips. She told me, "Jack, sometimes you just have to immerse yourself in English. Surround yourself with it." So I started doing that. I changed my phone settings to English, listened to English radio, and even followed English-speaking people on social media. At first, it felt like too much. But slowly, I noticed I was thinking in English more and more. Another fun thing I did was to play games in English. My brother, Max, loved video games. We would play together, and the games had lots of words and dialogues. I realized that playing games helped me learn without feeling like I was studying. I learned words like quest armor and strategy words that were fun but still useful. It felt like I was learning in a new way, one that didn't feel like work. One evening, while sitting with my friend Chloe, she told me something interesting. She said, "Jack, have you ever tried talking to yourself in English at first?" I laughed. It sounded funny. But she explained, "When you talk to yourself, there's no pressure. You can practice speaking without anyone judging you." I thought that was clever. So, when I was alone in my room, I started talking to myself. I would describe things I saw, like "the sky is blue today," or "I'm hungry, I should make a sandwich." It felt strange at first, but it really helped. It was like practicing without anyone around to correct me. Sometimes I would get tired of studying. There were days when learning English felt hard, and I didn't want to do it. But then I remembered something my teacher once told me, "Jack, it's okay to take breaks, but never give up." So, on days when I felt tired, I would just listen to English music or watch a short video. Even on the days when I wasn't studying hard, I was still learning. Over time, I realized that learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about enjoying the process. My friend Olivia once said, "Jack, the secret to learning is to have fun," and she was right. When I stopped worrying about making mistakes, I learned faster. It wasn't about getting every word right, it was about trying. One of my proudest moments was when I had my first conversation with someone in English without feeling nervous. It was with my neighbor, Mrs. Brown. She was so kind and patient. We talked about the weather, her garden, and even my school. After that, I felt unstoppable. Every conversation became easier, and I started enjoying them. Looking back, I realized that my secret strategy wasn't just one thing. It was a mix of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. It was about surrounding myself with English, making it a part of my daily life. I wasn't just learning in a classroom, I was learning everywhere. And that's what made the difference. Now, I love helping others learn English. My friend Mia is just starting, and I've shared these same tips with her. Don't rush, I told her. Enjoy the journey. And that's the best advice I can give to anyone learning English. It's not about reaching the end quickly. It's about enjoying every step along the way. So, my dear friend, as you read this, remember English is not just a language you learn, it's a language you live. Watch movies, read books, talk to friends, sing songs, and even play games. Don't be afraid to make mistakes because mistakes are part of learning. Keep a notebook, write down new words, and use them. Speak, even when it feels hard. You'll be surprised at how much you grow. Just like I was. And one day, you'll look back, just like I am now, and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. As the days went by, I found myself thinking in English more often. It wasn't something I had planned, but it just started happening. I would wake up in the morning and instead of thinking, I need to brush my teeth in my native language, I would think it in English. It felt strange at first, but also exciting. It was a sign that my brain was beginning to switch to English naturally. One of the things I learned early on was the importance of patience. There were times when I felt like I wasn't making any progress at all. I would read a page in English, and when I finished, I realized I hadn't understood half of it. I'd get frustrated and think, why is this so hard? But then I'd remind myself of something my mom always said, everything worth doing takes time. So I would take a deep breath, go back to the beginning of the page, and start again, this time a little slower. I learned to celebrate the small victories. If I understood one new word or one new phrase, that was a success. My friend, Rachel, who was also learning English, once told me about a game she played. She called it the word hunt. Every day. She would pick one word in English that she didn't know, and she'd try to find it everywhere she could. If she saw it in a book, heard it in a song, or even came across it in a movie, she'd write it down. By the end of the week, she had a list of words that she had hunted and learned. I thought this was a fun way to learn, so I started playing the game too. Some days my word would be something simple like apple, and other days it would be a more complicated word like determination, but the game made learning feel like an adventure. Another important part of my strategy was having friends who supported me. I was lucky to have people like Ben, Emily, and Rachel around. We would often meet up just to practice English. Sometimes we would pretend we were tourists visiting an English-speaking country, and we'd have conversations as if we were asking for directions or ordering food at a restaurant. It might sound silly, but it really helped. By pretending we were in real-life situations, we learned the kind of language that we would actually need to use one day. And the best part was, we were learning together. One day, while I was practicing with Emily, she gave me a great tip. She said, "Jack, don't just focus on the words. Focus on how they sound." I realized that pronunciation was something I had been ignoring. So, I started paying more attention to how native speakers said certain words. I would listen closely to the way their mouths moved, the way they stressed certain syllables, and even the way their voices went up and down depending on the sentence. I began to mimic them, almost like an actor trying to play a role. At first, I felt a bit self-conscious, but after a while, I noticed that my pronunciation was getting better. I wasn't just learning the words, I was learning how to say them in a way that sounded natural. Another thing that helped me a lot was using flashcards. My brother Max had shown me this method. He said, "It's a quick and fun way to learn new words," so I started making flashcards for every new word I learned. On one side of the card, I would write the word in English, and on the other side, I would write the meaning or translation. I carried these flashcards with me everywhere. When I was waiting for the bus or standing in line at the store, I would take them out and quiz myself. It was amazing how much I could learn in those little moments of waiting. One afternoon, I was sitting in the park with my friend Noah, and we were talking about the future. Noah had big dreams of traveling the world, and he told me, "Jack, English is the key. If you can speak English, you can go anywhere." That stuck with me. I realized that learning English wasn't just about understanding movies or songs, it was about opening doors to new experiences. I wanted to be able to travel, meet new people, and understand different cultures. English was a bridge to all of that. Noah's words gave me new motivation. I started setting goals for myself. I would tell myself, by the end of this month, I want to be able to have a full conversation in English without using my native language at all. It was a big goal, but having something to work towards made all the difference. Every day, I worked a little harder. I would practice with friends, watch more movies, and even try reading more difficult books. One of the biggest challenges I faced was learning grammar. Oh, how confusing it was at first. I remember sitting in class and feeling completely lost when the teacher started talking about things like past tense, present perfect, and conditional sentences. But instead of giving up, I made a decision I would take it one step at a time. I found simple explanations online and in books, and I broke the rules down into small pieces. I would focus on just one rule each week, like learning how to form past tense verbs. I practiced making sentences, sometimes funny ones, to help me remember. Yesterday I danced with a penguin, of course. It wasn't true, but it made learning fun. One of my favorite memories during this time was a conversation I had with my friend, Olivia. We were sitting in a cafe, and she was telling me about her recent trip to New York City. As she described the tall buildings and the busy streets, I realized that I was understanding everything she was saying. There were no subtitles, no translations. I was just listening and understanding. It was a small moment, but it felt like a huge achievement. I smiled and said, "Olivia, I think I'm finally getting it." She laughed and said, "I knew you would, Jack. You've worked so hard." As time went on, I started to feel more comfortable with English. I wasn't just learning anymore, I was living the language. I would dream in English, think in English, and even joke in English. It became a part of me. My secret strategy, which started with comic books and simple conversations, had grown into something much bigger. It was about embracing the language in every way possible, and most importantly, enjoying the process. Looking back now, I can see how each small step added up to something big. It wasn't always easy, and there were times when I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I kept going, even when it felt hard. And that's the secret. It's not about being perfect or learning everything overnight. It's about persistence. It's about finding joy in the journey and being proud of every small step forward. Now, when I meet someone who is just starting to learn English, I tell them my story. I share the tips and tricks that worked for me, and I remind them that it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. I tell them to read what they love, listen to songs they enjoy, and talk to people without fear. I remind them that English is not just a subject to study, it's a key to unlocking new worlds. So, my friend, as you continue on your own journey to learn English, remember this: you are not alone. Every new word you learn, every sentence you write, every conversation you have is bringing you closer to your goal. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to make mistakes. What matters is that you keep going, keep trying, and keep enjoying the process. Because one day, just like me, you'll look back and realize that the journey itself was the most rewarding part. And that's when you'll know that you've truly mastered the language